Welcome to, or back to, Forgotten Hollywood, the channel where I take you back in time to show you the movies, shows, and actors that have faded over the years. There are many leaders who have been featured in biopics. Alexander the Great, Abraham Lincoln, Queen Elizabeth I, Martin Luther King Jr., Queen Victoria, Winston Churchill, Henry VIII. For the record, I never said they were all good leaders. But one of the things these men and women have in common is their push for notoriety, their actions to make change that propelled them into the spotlight. But what about the ones who never meant to lead? What about the ones who were never trying to make a statement and just sort of tripped into the spotlight? I want to talk about one of those stories. Alvin York was born in a log cabin on December 13th, 1886. The third of 11 children, he had very little education as he was needed to work from a young age, especially after his father died, to support the family. In his youth, like many other young men in his time and ours, York had a love of alcohol and a habit of getting into fights. However, he had a religious experience in 1914 that caused him to change his ways. He became active in his local church, practiced pacifism, and lived a quiet life as a blacksmith in the backwoods of Tennessee. By 1919, this man was one of the most decorated soldiers to serve in World War I. How did that happen? During a battle, when all his commanding officers were killed or wounded, York was given command of a small company of men facing off against German machine guns. Leaving the bulk of his men with the wounded and several prisoners they had captured, York went up the hill towards the guns and, well, let's just say you don't grow up on a farm in rural Tennessee at the turn of the century without knowing how to handle a rifle. Single-handedly, York killed 20 German soldiers and caused the enemy officers to surrender to the small group of Americans. With around 8 men, York marched a total of 132 German prisoners back to Allied forces. The story of Alvin York is dramatized in the 1941 film Sergeant York, starring Gary Cooper in the title role. As with all biopics, liberties are taken with the details and the timeline. For example, in the movie, Alvin has only 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. Obviously, they are missing 2 or 3 or 8. Other minor changes include making him a farmer instead of a blacksmith and shifting the year of his religious conversion from 1914 to 1916. Do I mind these alterations? Not really, although I think that seeing 10 younger siblings would have had a stronger impact during the scenes when he was a rowdy drunk who wasn't helping the family. No, the minor changes have no effect on the main events, and tweaking the timeline was more to streamline the story and to avoid too many time jumps, which can be jarring and confusing if relied on too much. Besides, the most they did was turn 4 years into 1 or 2 years. It's not like they were trying to, say, compress a century or 3 dozen. You might be wondering why it took over 20 years before a movie came out about the soldier's bravery. The man won the Medal of Honor and was decorated by several of the Allied countries. Still, only 1 movie. General Custer appears in more than 30, and his biggest claim to fame is murdering peaceful natives and getting all his men killed. Doesn't Sergeant York deserve more recognition than an ambitious butcher? Whatever you might believe as far as his worthiness goes, there is a very simple answer as to why only 1 film was made. That's how Alvin York wanted it. If he had his way, no movie would have been made about him. Now, there is a story that he only agreed to let the movie be made if Gary Cooper played him, but that's only half true. Mr. Cooper may have believed it, but my research showed that it was actually a producer that sent a telegram asking Gary Cooper to accept the part, but he signed York's name in an attempt to sway him. Who could say no to a national hero? The real reason he sold the rights is far more noble and fits his character on and off screen. He wanted the money to build a school in rural Tennessee. This passion for education, something he had very little of, is depicted in the movie when Gary Cooper is shown teaching them out of the Bible, answering their questions between verses. Other details set up early on that came into play later were his quick temper, skill with a rifle, and his strong desire to do what is morally right. All these explain why he climbed that hill and how he was able to take on the German gunners. As the film was based on York's diary, his own memories of those days, it's probably among the most accurate biopics out there, at least in spirit. It also was released during York's lifetime, so they would have had to be careful not to stray too far into Hollywood magic and risk the negativity that upsetting a national hero could bring. In the end, One film is all that is needed to capture the heart of who Alvin York was and what he did that has cemented him as a global hero. As time went on, memory of his deeds largely faded, which may have been how he wanted it after his death in 1964. In 2019, his name was brought back into the spotlight when the Swedish metal band Sabaton wrote a song about his exploits for an album about World War I. So I guess he's not completely forgotten. The great ones never are. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on Alvin York? Or is this your first time you've heard of him? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this sort of content. Also, click that bell to receive notifications. Let me know if there's another movie, character, or historic figure you would like a deeper look at, and I will catch you next time.